But first, a new bombshell poll published today shows that nearly half of the King's realms would vote to become republics if they had the chance. Caribbean countries cite colonial ties as the reason for wanting to part with the monarchy. And pretty disturbingly for King Charles, 10 of the 14 countries polled say they back the Sussexes.
Okay, let's talk about the big question. Should King Charles apologize? The monarchy is full of history and tradition. But also, let's be real, some bad stuff. I've always loved the royals, but even I'm not sure about this one. But Piers, we don't know everything. The palace must have its reasons. We should respect their privacy. Privacy? Come on, Angela. They're famous. Being quiet makes people guess. And then there's the king's health. I hope he's okay, but it makes you wonder about the future. Who's next in line?
Saying Meghan's treatment exposes racist views. It's ignited debate about whether King Charles should apologise for Britain's past sins, maybe even pay reparations. Would that make any difference? Or would it just fuel the fire of republicanism? Well, here with me now to debate this, the former royal butler to Princess Diana, Paul Burrell, the activist and organiser of Black Lives Matter protests, Iman Aiden, and the historian and royal author, Dr. Tessa Dunlop. Well, this will be a quiet debate, won't it? Well, you brought your earplugs, Paul.
I won't get a look in.
Paul, let me start
Yes.
with you. I've got a problem with this constant looking back in history, feeling guilty for stuff that none of us in this era actually did, and then having to say sorry for everything that we didn't do, and even now, apparently having to pay people today for stuff that happened to their ancestors many generations before. I don't really get what that achieves.
We should learn from lessons of the past. We can't change anything, and we should move forward. But the Queen's greatest achievement, his mother's greatest achievement, was the Commonwealth of Countries. She was very proud of that. I think if we could beam her down now, she would say, my Commonwealth. That should survive intact into the King's reign. So he should do whatever he can. Now, bear in mind, I've known this man for a very long time.
Yeah.
He has a voice, and he will say what he
But
feels.
here's the real problem he's got. There's another voice yapping away
Yes.
about racism. Two voices. His son, Harry,
Yes.
and Harry's wife, Meghan, who for 3 years have branded the royal family a bunch of callous racists. That is now turning up in these
Yes.
polls because, understandably, frankly,
Yes.
black people in the Commonwealth around the world are going, whoa, really? They're racist, these people? And yet they haven't produced a shred of evidence for any of it.
You and I know the royal family are not racist. And you and I know that they pressed the racist button on the Oprah Winfrey show.
Yeah.
And they never apologised to the Queen.
Never.
She went to her grave thinking there was a racist in the royal family.
And after she died,
actually,
they said...
What happened?
We never
didn't say that, the press said
We
that.
didn't mean to say it was racism.
Why
All right.
didn't you correct it, Harry? Why didn't you tell your
Well, we know why,
because
because it made them, they weaponized racism and mental health to make themselves extremely rich.
I totally agree.
All right, Iman, this is my problem. This has always been my problem with this racism narrative that these two have spun without any evidence, is that people around the world, particularly people of colour, they believe it. And why wouldn't they believe it? They're hearing the first person who wasn't a white royal bride say they're racist, these people. So then the damage is palpable. It's tangible, and it will lead, I think, if we're not careful, to a load of these countries becoming republics and the beginning of the end of the monarchy.
Thank you for your soliloquy.
So thank you.
All right, no problem. So first and foremost, my feelings on the royal family and racism are not predicated on Harry and Meghan's willingness to identify it. That's the difference between me and you. We are talking about a country that was built off of racism, and we are referring to the oldest institution in this country that started it all. So that's the first thing. In terms of why black people and many others feel the way that we do, well, the monarchy is a symbol of white supremacy. Okay? White supremacy. That is the reason. Let me just
Why
finish.
does it make any difference if King Charles says sorry, or why does it make if he pays money? What difference does that make?
Okay. So
How
reparations...
does that combat racism?
No, it actually does. So let me
The guy hasn't got a
Let me
racist bone in his body. He's done more for racism than any public figure in the country. Why should he be paying for the sins of people hundreds of years ago?
Okay, so can I finish?
Yes.
Thank you very much. So, the monarchy is a symbol of White supremacy, which is what black people have had to contend with for the last 400 years, notwithstanding the fact that Elizabeth, or every king and queen, from Elizabeth I.
You think the last late queen was a model of white supremacy?
Let me finish my point. You just asked me several questions. Let me finish my point.
Well, answer the question.
Right,
then.
I'm getting there, so just finish.
Well, hurry
Let
up.
me just finish, OK?
Hurry up.
So, every king and queen, from Elizabeth I to William IV, has supported and profited off of slavery. So, this is about the fact that this country was built off of racism, and that's
this
the
country
point.
also
Wait, hold on
led.
a second. This country
You can't just keep
stems
talking.
No, because I haven't even finished my point.
You
Piers.
can't just
keep
make
interrupting.
outlandish
You
statements
keep
about our royal family and not
interrupting.
expect me to jump in.
Piers, you keep interrupting. Can I finish my point?
This country also led the world out of slavery.
OK, so can I finish my point?
A
Is that
long
right?
time ago.
Can I finish my point, please?
Yes.
Perfect.
But
So,
please finish it.
I will. No problem. Just be patient. So, every single king and queen, from Elizabeth I to William IV, over a 270-year
You've just
period,
said this.
supported the enslavement of Africans and profited as a result. So it
Yeah.
doesn't, it doesn't
this
take any
country-
genius. Hold on a second. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that this country was built off of racism and it stems from white supremacy, all of which is directly attributed to the crown, slavery and colonialism. To answer
you
your
now-
point, let me finish
You can't
my
just
point.
keep talking.
Piers, you keep interrupting.
Answer my question.
Let's have a conversation.
Answer my question.
Let's have a conversation.
We need mediation here, guys.
You spoke about slavery. Let me answer the point.
I asked you a specific question.
I want to
Why
answer
should
the point.
King Charles
So let me answer the
be
point.
either apologising
answer the point.
for what happened centuries ago
Okay, let me
or
answer the
paying money for it?
OK, so what you're talking about is slavery. I'm not talking about slavery. Slavery can be traced back to Europe. The Greek slave trade, to be specific, in 400 BC, then the Roman Empire. And then we get to the Muslim conquest of the 7th century.
And
Vikings,
black
8th
people
century.
had slaves
So what
too,
we're talking about,
right?
exactly. So I'm not talking about
slavery
Piers.
comes in
I
many
am not
forms.
talking about
There is a lot of slavery around
Piers,
today.
So I'll tell you what I'm talking about. I'm talking about colonialism, neo-colonialism, racism, racial disparities, and the racist system of oppression and exploitation of black people and white supremacist attitudes, which have been rebanded under the
What's that got to do with King Charles?
I'm telling you why he needs to apologise and pay reparations.
Why? What did he
It's
do?
not anything to do with slavery. Slavery
What
is
did
an
he
element.
do?
I'm telling you, colonialism, neo-colonialism,
He didn't
racism,
do that.
racial disparities and a racist system and white supremacist attitudes. That is the legacies of the crown, slavery and colonialism that still remains.
I
to this day.
understand.
Let me finally get my point across. Lord,
You've
need
got
to
your
let me
point
finish.
across, but here's my point, my counterpoint to you. What's any of that got to do with...
Exactly. And then there's Harry, supporting his dad after the cancer news. Does it seem real to you, after everything he said in his book Spare? Real? Piers Morgan. Give me a break, he's a fake. Making money by attacking his family, then acting like the good son. Unbelievable. People can see right through it. Spare really hurt the royal family, it made them look so bad. Piers Morgan? Exactly. And then the Australia trip. Supposed to be great, but that problem with Senator Thorpe messed it up. The yelling, the demands for land. It showed everyone how much anger is still there. Omid Scobie. It did. But the crowds at the Opera House, the cheering, shows people still like the monarchy, true.
King Charles,
Okay, so
who
explain.
actually has been, I think, one of the great standard bearers in royal history for actually promoting racial equality and tackling racial
Okay,
injustice.
so let me
Yet you
explain.
want him to be issuing grovelling apologies and you want him to pay money.
OK, so I think black people would be far more inclined to get over it if it wasn't for the fact that the legacies of the crown, slavery and colonialism still remain, which includes racism, racial disparities, and the racist global system of oppression and exploitation of black people. Which
All right, you're not answering my question,
I
Tessa.
am, but you don't want to accept it. That's
I
the
do.
difference.
No,
That is the difference.
you haven't explained
You
what-
also have the
what's
wealth
that
of
got to
economic
do with King
expansion
Charles?
as a result of exploitation of black people.
Let
You also have
let
British
Tessa
global...
speak now.
Hold on. You haven't even let me finish, Piers. No problem. No problem. I've understood
You've
how
done
you do.
9/10 of the talk.
No, you didn't let me
Tessa,
finish. You didn't let me
I
finish.
You've heard the debate.
I think you're both wrong, actually. On the one hand, we celebrate, and you certainly do, Piers, the idea of monarchy as continuity.
Yeah.
Going way back when. I mean, I read an article this week that traced the anointing oils to the Old Testament and King Solomon. You can't pick and choose which bits of that continuous historic line you like.
Yes, I can.
Well,
how is that I'm
you
wrong?
can, but it's hugely,
But how is it that I'm wrong?
problematic.
How is it that I'm wrong? What are you
And I
talking
would
about,
counter
Tessa?
to you, where we have the face of history and the physical form of history in our royal family.
White
When,
supremacy,
when
that's what
for
I'm talking
example,
about.
France, the Republic, outlawed slavery much later, and in the civil wars in America, that's what it took in America much later. So my point is, two cents. Let me finish my point.
You see, you want to interrupt, but you interrupted me several times, Piers.
You did all the talking.
I see your hypocrisy right now. It's fine. I did all the talking.
I think what you
interrupting me.
What we're doing here is we're conflating an individual family with institutions of state. You can't expect a king to apologise. He doesn't have that power. He would have to be told to apologise by the government because it's an institution of state.
Do I have to? All right.
He's talked about sorry.
Excuse me. Time out. Time out.
Actively apologised.
Time out.
Time out. You keep talking about slavery. Let's just be clear about slavery. Yes, you did end slavery. You've made that point and you've made that point, so let me address it. You did end slavery, and there was a clause in the contract that said, for example, that Jamaicans had to work up to 45 hours a week for the following 4 years, whilst you simultaneously paid off the slave owners and left the enslaved in their countries to rot. And then you transition to colonialism, where slavery still continued, and then you transition to the Commonwealth, where you continue to assert your dominance, exploit black people, and do it in a far more dignified way, while simultaneously.
There are also. Excuse me.
Nobody's refuting.
Can we all stop talking?
Nobody's refuting the repugnance of that.
Can we please time out? The biggest problem with slavery right now is there are between 7 to 10 million slaves in India. Last time I looked, that is not as a result of white supremacy causing modern-day slavery. I would rather we expend all our energy on current slavery issues than going back in the past, as we now do with... We now go back in the past for everything, wallowing in self-guilt about stuff that had nothing to do with us. Paul?
Yes. Legacies. You ignored that conveniently. Legacies of the crown slavery and colonialism. You ignored that conveniently.
This is such a negative. This is a
legacies going back how far? How far do you want to go back?
400 years. Black people have been constant.
Okay, so I want.
I told you that.
So do you think the Vikings should be paying me money for what they did to me?
See, you're talking about slavery. I am not. I would explain.
I'm not talking about slavery.
I'm talking about colonialism,
You're not listening to me,
racism, and racial disparities that still contend.
Stop shouting. You're not listening to what I said.
You're not listening to me.
Should the Vikings and the Romans also, through their modern-day ancestors, be paying me reparations for what they did to my family?
So I'm not talking about slavery, I'm talking about colonialism.
It's not slavery, you're not listening to me.
Yes, I am.
The Vikings and Romans didn't make us slaves.
No, yes, you're talking about the Roman Empire, which included
slavery. No, I'm talking about the Romans and the Vikings coming over here and causing immeasurable harm to my ancestors.
Empire and slavery.
Should Italians and Norwegians be paying me reparations?
In one sentence, Iman, in one sentence.
Go ahead.
What do you want? In one sentence, what's your idea?
Thank you, Tessa.
You want money?
You want money?
You want money?
Reparations.
Okay. Then I want money from the Vikings and the Romans. Paul,
I think
Paul, be very patient.
No, but the Commonwealth is a force for good.
Yes.
Commonwealth countries. Yes, it is. They do.
Absolutely.
They work for each other. It's a family, a community of families that help each other. That's why it was formed. And
no, you benefit more. That's why it's formed.
No, we don't benefit more. They benefit as well. They do benefit. Of course they do.
Paul.
Yes, they do.
Yes, I'm not saying that they don't. What I'm saying is that we benefit, you benefit, you benefit
Everyone
more.
benefits.
Exactly.
All right.
You benefit, you benefit, you benefit more. That's white supremacy.
How much money do you want from me?
That's what I keep talking about.
How much money do you want from me?
The National Commission on Reparations said that Jamaica, for example, is
how much do you want from me?
1.2 trillion.
How much do you want from me?
It's not about my feelings and not from you. I'm not. This isn't about me. And
we've all got to chip in, right? So
but
how much do you want? How much money could I give you for something that had nothing to do with me, right?
That's why I want it.
How much money could I give you to make racism better? Nothing.
Keep ignoring that conveniently. We're talking about the legacies of the crown slavery and colonialism, which includes racism.
I don't know why you've come on deciding to speak like a robot today, but it's not really working.
Because you don't listen. That's why.
But nor does talking to me like that. Doesn't work.
Okay, well, how about listening?
But I will happily
pay listening?
If you could convince me that it will change racism one iota in this country, I will pay you a cheque for the damage inevitably that was done by my relatives when they weren't being attacked by Vikings and Romans. I will pay you reparations if I think you have any argument for why I should. And you know what? There isn't one.
Can I give you a response?
No, we've run out of time. That's it.
That's the point.
Guys, thank you all very much indeed.
But Charles can't ignore these calls for an apology. He needs to do something. And SMEAR, it just won't go away. The accusations, the family fights, it's hurt their image for sure. It has, and the Netflix and Spotify deals, using their royal status to make money, well, they need to earn a living. And they've gotten a ton of criticism from inside the royal family too. Criticism? They brought it on themselves. No one knows what will happen to the monarchy. Charles has a hard job ahead of him. Can he change? Can he fix things with his family? He has a lot of responsibility. Things are at a turning point.